The Faceless Martyr by Ezekyle2517. Vorshak's Sal crouched upon a low hab building, a motionless gargoyle clad in midnight against the drab grey. This terror raid had been orchestrated in the underhive of Maliox, low enough to prowl unnoticed, but not yet deep enough for the shackles of civilization to completely crumble away. The enveloping darkness, choking fumes, and suffocating heat of this city's underbelly reminded him of another world from his past. From so long ago, the memory seemed to belong in a dream from another lifetime. A commotion below rudely tore Vorshak away from his strained recollection. He cast his eyes back to his prey as it stumbled beneath him along enclosed alleys and tight alcoves, its almost harshly white garments causing it to stand apart from the dingy reality that it traversed. Its path was uninhibited. Curfew had cleared the streets of all but the most opportunist sinners of the night. And yet he stumbled his way along, drunk on the terror that washed over him, eyes wild with desperation. Vorshak had done well so far. The gargoyle reanimated with a whine of strained servos, dashing across the rooftops and leaping to adjoining structures with unnatural speed and agility. Vorshak closed the distance between himself and the target with ease, his eyesight cutting through even the darkest of shadows, granting the figure below no respite from his relentless pursuit. His full-plate fractured rockcrete roofing and raked steel supports, but the hab district that formed his hunting grounds neighboured a sprawling manufactorum sector, its relentless noise almost entirely cloaking his every crashing footfall. Almost. The effect of what little noise escaped unmasked was evident in the mortal. Its head swiveled frantically, eyes darting with heightening hysteria to the blackness above, often causing it to lose its footing in a vain attempt to glimpse its spectral hunter. The fear that it cast was almost tangible. His victim continued its charge through empty streets like a startled stock animal separated from its herd. With increasing panic, its path became so erratic that it quickly found itself at the end of a narrow passageway with no exit, staring into cold masonry. Its body shook at the impact of Vorshak hitting the pavement behind it, but its eyes remained fixed forward, only a quiet string of prayers escaping its lips. Both knew none would intervene.
"Your corpse god cannot deliver you,"
Vorshak stated pointedly, his already deep voice grating through his helmet's vox emitter.
"Although you may take solace knowing your end will serve a higher purpose."
He trailed off into a sadistic chuckle, inducing further shivers from the mortal as it emerged as a harsh scraping. Still trembling, the Ministorum adept turned slowly, grimacing the whole while as if his body followed the will of another, until he finally laid eyes upon the grisly warrior that stood before him. Its size was almost incomprehensible, and further exaggerated in this cramped environment. The colour of the armour appeared to have been a dark blue, although this was difficult to tell, as the majority of the plates were swathed in sheets of ragged human hide, and the rest glazed with a deep red tint. The warrior wielded an enlarged fist, with blades a foot long protruding from its digits, their energy fields growling, as if fervently anticipating further bloodshed. As his gaze rose, it fell at last upon the face of death itself. A helmet moulded to resemble a twisted human skull, with razor fangs flanked by chiropteran wings, all within sharp slivers of ruby burned eagerly. This was Vorshak's favourite part. He breathed in the subtle scent of sweat, mingling with the sharp tang of expelled urine. Every mortal had their own fear scent, and this one's was pungent. He gazed on, taking in every mote of fear the priest displayed, his trembling lip, his knocking knees, the whites of his knuckles clasped in a death grip around his golden pendant hanging from his neck. Vorshak allowed himself one last toothy grin behind his executioner's mask. A pair of Arbites found the priest the next day's cycle. He rested 2 feet off the ground, cables running down the adjacent buildings, having been ripped free to bind his legs and forearms, and hold him in a mocking crucifix. The man's robes, along with his skin, had been almost entirely removed, from the damage caused to his exposed muscle by the taut binding cables. The Arbites deemed the man had still been alive at the time. The vestments lay, now a deep shade of red, discarded below him in a sea of effusion. However, his skin had yet to be recovered. His badge of office had been replaced carefully, and now hung carefully beneath his skinless face, framing 2 shockingly white eyes, with no lids to block out the harrowing torment that must have occurred. To complete the scene, the perpetrator had left one final message. On the wall, at the rear of the alley, behind the figure whose fate it had been so cruelly sealed, was a line of text written in the dark, dried vitae of the man's faith. "The Emperor protects," was illuminated by the harsh white glow of a portable strip loom, punctuated by an aquila given form by 2 incredibly large handprints. The true symbolism of the scene was lost on no one present.